getting set to go now. You can see all the cars out, ready to go. Down and quiet. Here we go. Neo 13 grand finale off and underway. Into the first corner they go. Looks like a pretty clean start. Oh, pile up there. That's Ryan Lutz getting turned upside down. As they work their way around, Jared Tebo with the early lead right now. Elliott Boots in that second place spot. There's Martin Bayer early on. A lot of racing left to go. 45 minutes. Cody King buried in the back of the pack right now. Jared Tebo, the American Team Kyosho driver, leading this one right now. Up and over the tabletop he goes. Into the catapult section. Elliott Boots in that second.
Hello, my name is Jared Tebo. I grew up in a racing family in the high desert of Southern California. My dad raced street bikes when I was very young, and I started racing dirt bikes when I was 6. In second grade, my parents decided to get a divorce. In our family, there wasn't much talk about God or Jesus. I think my mom went to church a little, but I can't remember attending with her. When I was in 5th grade, I decided I was tired of having casts and monthly hospital visits from racing dirt bikes, and the following year, I found something that would forever change my life. At the time, I was living with my mom in Bakersfield, California, which was about 1 hour away from where I grew up and where my dad was still living. My dad would come visit me, and one day we decided to check out a hobby store near my mom's house. I never really had RC cars before, and I didn't realize they had tracks to race on. As soon as I heard the nitro-powered engines and saw the trucks and buggies clearing the jumps around the track, I was hooked. I had just turned 12, and even though the workers at the shop said I was too young, my dad bought me a used gas truck. For me, RC was motocross without the hospital, and I loved it. My dad was my mechanic, and all I had to do was just focus on learning how to drive better. I started racing the weekly club races and practiced every chance I had. 1 year later, I had gone through the ranks faster than anyone in the history of RC. I was a professional driver at the age of 13, and my dad and I were traveling the world racing. In 2003, I was attending a race in Pleasant Hill, Missouri. It was a track that I had been to before, and it was owned by one of my teammates. This trip was different than the years previous because I met the track owner's beautiful daughter, Megan. She had a tent set up and was selling drinks. My team manager introduced us, mainly because we had our team drinks under her tent. Let's just say I was extra thirsty that weekend. We managed to exchange phone numbers and emails to keep in touch. That Thanksgiving, I flew out to Kansas City, and Megan and her family picked me up at the airport. I was nervous. I knew her dad, but I knew him as Hillbilly the RC racer, not as Steve, Megan's dad. I also knew that they were Christians and believed in God and attended church. That meant I would have to attend church. I had never been to a church before. I had my own views on Christians. My views were that Christians were the kids at my school that talked about youth group, but then had parties, got drunk, and smoked. I thought they were all hypocrites while they used church to pretend that they were good people. I went to Megan's church with them, and it wasn't too bad. I lived through my first church service. I grew up as a good kid. I didn't drink, never tried smoking, and even wanted to wait to have sex. Other than Megan, I didn't know many others with those same views. She had very similar thoughts as I did. Our time dating long distance was amazing, but our dream was to be able to see each other on a daily basis. In 2005, I was a senior in high school. My racing career was really starting to take form, and I was now a 3-time U.S. national champion, though my world had just been seriously rocked. My mom was going through tough times that I was not aware of, and she tried to take her own life. It was a major shock, and I just couldn't figure out why she wanted to leave me. It was very tough on our relationship, to say the least. A short time after that, while I was living with my dad, he told me he had to work late, which he told me many times in the past, and that I would see him in the morning. That night, I was interrupted while watching TV by police officers charging into the house and telling me I needed to not touch anything and leave the house. The next day, I was informed that my dad had been arrested and wasn't going to be coming home. Here I was in total shock again. Neither of my parents were there for me, and I was on my own. A couple weeks later, on the day of my high school graduation, My dad was released on bail, and he was able to get there in time to see me graduate. After that, it was back to business. My racing career was in full swing, and we pretended that nothing ever happened. I finished out 2005 with a great racing year and one of the most dominating years in RC history. I was ranked the best driver in the world. In April of 2006, my dad's trial ended and he was sentenced to 9 months in prison. My life would look much different when he returned. Here I was, an 18-year-old kid, a professional racer, living on my own and having to support myself financially. I was just ranked the best RC driver in the world, and now I've lost my mechanic and partner. I didn't know what I was doing. I couldn't build my cars. I couldn't maintain my cars. I couldn't even get them set up for all the different tracks I raced. On top of all that stress, I was still very hurt that my mom had made a decision to try to leave Earth and not see me anymore. 2006 was a very tough year, but I did have one thing going for me, and that was Megan. We had been dating for 3 years, and we were now engaged to be married. I would still go out to Missouri and visit her every chance I had. While out there, we would go to their church, but I still wasn't that into it. She would talk to me about Jesus Christ and God, but she knew not to push too hard. In summer of 2006, my racing career was struggling, and the RC community had almost turned against me. People were mad at me for what my dad did, but I didn't do anything wrong. I was ready for my life to be over. Megan kept telling me to try to talk to God, that he could help me. I thought, how would talking to the air help me? One night I got off the phone with Megan, and I was just done with life. I had nothing else left. I tried dealing with my problems myself, but it wasn't working. I got off my bed, went to the floor, and got onto my knees. There I broke down and gave it all to God and talked to him for the very first time. I didn't know how this was supposed to work or how I needed to talk to him. It didn't matter though. He was there that night when I needed him. It was an amazing moment in my life, and I actually felt better. I had some assurance that my life was going to be okay. Later on, I would learn about Jesus and how he died on the cross for our sins and rose from the grave. That if you believe in Jesus, you can have eternal life. Megan had just graduated from high school, and the plan was for her to move to California and go to school out there. When I really started my relationship with Jesus Christ, moving Megan out to California didn't seem like the best option anymore. California was filled with bad memories in the past. I wanted a fresh start, so in November I bought a house in Raymore, Missouri. My mom also decided to leave California, and she moved to Clinton, Missouri. Shortly after Christmas of 2006, my dad was released from prison. Megan and I got married January 5th, 2007, but my dad was unable to attend our wedding. Our dream was finally coming true. Megan and I got to see each other every day, and it was all we had dreamed it to be. One of our major commitments after we got married was to tithe. By now we were attending church on a regular basis, but I was still very new to all this. Giving 10% of my income was a huge commitment for me, but one I am very thankful we made. In the beginning, tithing was like paying tuition for school. They say people that pay for their school take school much more serious than if you get it for free. I figured if I'm paying the money, I might as well get all that I can from it. Later on, I learned that tithing was much more than paying tuition. It was showing God that I'm thankful for all the things that he gives me. I give him my first 10%, and I trust that he will provide for me and my family. It is breaking down the materialistic mindset that the world wants us to have, as a reminder that all things are God's. 2007 was a great year. I had a great wife, I was learning about Jesus Christ and God, and my racing career was back on track. I even won my first world championship in Japan that year. We bounced around from church to church for a couple years, trying to find a place that felt like home. We heard about Rockbrook and attended there for the first time in May of 2009. Everyone was very warm and welcoming. It just had the vibe we've been looking for. After that first Sunday service, Megan and I even saw Rylan and Lauren at the plaza taking pictures. I thought, wow, even those church people go out into the real world. We started attending regularly, and we even became good friends with Rylan and Lauren. We finally felt at home, and that led to me taking the next big step in my journey. That next step was joining a small group. We were part of a new small group for young married couples that started in August of 2009, and we still meet with that small group today. Joining that small group was an important tool to getting us more plugged into church and my relationship with Jesus Christ. Life seemed to be going pretty good. My relationships with both my parents were even getting better. And on November 18th, 2010, God would give us the amazing gift of a healthy little girl that we named Rosalind. She was so beautiful and healthy, life seemed great. In 2011, it seemed like life took 2 steps forward and then 1 big step backwards. I had brought in a very dark secret into our marriage. God opened my eyes to see that I needed help. I had an addiction to internet pornography. It was very tough in our marriage and both of us as individuals. God had this plan though. That's why He had put us in a small group. I could talk with the guys, and they really helped me fight my addiction. Addiction is a wild tool that the devil uses to destroy you. It is almost like a mind control that the devil has over you, and he wants you to think that you can't overcome it. Slowly, our marriage was coming back together, and my faith was growing. We wanted another child and got pregnant in July of 2012. We were very excited, but during our 18-week ultrasound, we got rocked by life harder than I could ever imagine. Our new baby was not in good health and not developing properly. The doctor said the baby had no brain, no face, no skull, its organs were not inside the body, it was missing a wrist and some fingers, and it had club feet. We had all the shock we could handle and then some. The doctor gave us 2 options. We could abort the baby and kill it, or we could carry it and wait for it to die. By this time, Megan was just starting to show some of her pregnant belly, and it was going to be very tough to answer people when they had comments about us being pregnant. We prayed about it and decided that we could not decide if our child shall live or die. Only God should have that power. That would later turn into one of the greatest decisions of our lives. Soon after we found out that the baby was a girl, we named her Isabella Ann Tebo, and we were just going to enjoy all the time we had with her. I was still freaking out inside and wanted to call my dad to tell him about everything and get some support. Support was not what he had for me though. He only had an opinion for me, and it was not the same as I had. On top of trying to handle all of this, I still had my racing career. Just a month later, I was on a plane to Argentina to compete in the World Championships, while my wife was at home pregnant with a sick baby. The race went terrible. I was one of the favorites to win the title, but I had mechanical issues that took my chance away. My life was flipped again, and I was in a major battle with God as to why. Shortly after I returned, Megan and I went to downtown Kansas City to take pictures of her and Isabella. While we were taking pictures, Megan's water broke, and we were off to the hospital. Megan was only 24 weeks pregnant, and our time with Isabella was almost over. On December 16th, 2012, Isabella Ann Tebo was stillborn. I was terrified to see her, as we didn't know what to expect. I cut her umbilical cord, and we saw her for the first time. To us, she looked beautiful. It didn't even matter that she was not developed. She was our daughter. We really enjoyed the time we had with her. We held her, we sang to her, read to her, and we stayed the night with her in the hospital. Leaving the hospital was a very tough and weird time for us. I just couldn't believe that this was really happening and our time with her was finished. Saying that I was mad at God doesn't come close to describing my feelings towards Him. I was trying to do everything right in life, but I was almost done with being a Christian altogether. Then I realized that God has been transforming me this entire time. From first talking to God in my bedroom in 2006 to December 2012, I did good things. I was a good person, I had a good marriage, I was a good dad, but it wasn't good enough. That wasn't what God wanted for me. God wanted greater things for me. Now I have realized why God gave me Isabella. My question to Him was always, Why would you not let her live here on earth with me? Isabella was not made for this earth. God used Isabella to wake us up, to open our blinded eyes. I was living a worldly life with just a little snack of God on Sundays and Mondays. After Isabella, my wife started blogging about our story, and Isabella is reaching out to people all over the world. It has even opened up my eyes to blog about my life to all my racing fans. I have an opportunity to share the good news to thousands of people all around the world. Let me tell you something. You can question God all you want, but God works in ways that we will never understand. If we understood everything in life, we wouldn't need God. We wouldn't need to have faith, and we wouldn't have to know Jesus Christ. God has turned all the terrible things that have happened in my life into the greatest blessings. It took my mom trying to take her own life and my dad going to prison for me to come to Christ and get saved. It took losing a child to open my eyes and see that I thought I was doing everything right, but I was stagnant. God wants to do great things in our lives. Today I can say that I am for the first time feeling true happiness. I am feeling peace that I never thought that I could feel. Life is short here on earth. We need to live our lives for Christ, and then we can see this earth for what God created it for.